can't do that. Y'all cannot force me. Y'all can't sentence me like this. This is illegal. The courts lack jurisdiction over the subject matter. Y'all don't have no right.
This sovereign citizen walks into court and completely loses control. It's honestly hard to describe. I know I sometimes build up these videos, but this is genuinely one of the wildest courtroom reactions I've ever seen. Just look around. There are 5, 6, maybe even 7 officers in the courtroom, and they're all there for a reason. This isn't the first time she's behaved like this either. She's been in court before and caused similar chaos. She's been pushing the same sovereign citizen claims for years, and things get so out of hand that officers have to strap her into a restraint chair during the hearing. If you enjoy courtroom videos like this, be sure to leave a like. I've seen a lot of AI channels copy my content, so I really appreciate your support. Now, let's get into it.
No, come on out. This is the date and time set for sentencing. The record show the presence of the defendant. Our advisory counsel is here. Mr. Wagner, are you appearing before the state?
Yes.
This is the date and time set for sentencing. Good.
Excuse me, how you doing?
No, I'm talking now.
Okay.
Listen to me. Is your true name and your complete name Shayna Marie Blackshire?
The court lack jurisdiction over the subject matter.
What is your date of birth?
The court lack jurisdiction over the subject matter.
The court will accept based upon a verdict by the guilty in this case.
The court lack jurisdiction over personal addiction.
As a result of a jury trial, the court finds the defendant is guilty in CR 22209. Count 1, unlawful flight from a law enforcement vehicle, a Class 5 felony. This is in violation of ARS 28624C,
Y'all cannot force me to get sentenced.
Yes, I can. ARS 28622, ARS 28622.01, A1, 28624C, 283001, 283304, 283305, 283315, 13701, 702, and 801. The date of the offense was on or about February 5th, 2022. The offense is non-dangerous, and I'm finding it non-repetitive for reasons I'll state on the record. Count three, that she is guilty of count 3, criminal damage, a Class 1 misdemeanor. It's in violation of ARS 13-1602A1, 13-1601, 13-707, 13-802.
Or watching this, the saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime, immediately comes to mind. She's arguing that she can't be forced to stay in the courtroom after everything that's happened, and it just doesn't make any sense. To me, it feels like there's a complete lack of self-awareness and personal responsibility. It's almost as if accountability doesn't exist for people like this, especially sovereign citizens. She's also not exactly well-versed in the usual sovereign citizen arguments. Aside from repeating one of the common talking points, she doesn't seem to know much of the typical script we usually hear. Let me know if you think behavior like this comes from a lack of accountability, because it honestly comes across as incredibly childish.
Mr. Wagner, do you want to be heard on behalf of the state?
I do, Your Honor.
And if the victims wish to be heard, we have victims here in the courtroom, a victim, I think, I'm not sure.
No, Your Honor. She's outlasted the victims.
She's outlasted the victim. Do you wish to be heard?
The victims have had to return back to their homes in Oregon, and they're not here, which is a detriment to them. They had as much a right to be here as she did for sentencing, but she is her own attorney, and she's drugged us out long enough that the victims aren't here to give a statement today.
Right, so y'all can't do that. Y'all cannot force me. Y'all can't sentence me like this.
Ms. Blackshire, I believe that these are repetitive and that she should be subject to the Category 2 repetitive offender statutes. She committed these crimes. She was taken into custody for the first crimes, the 208, Your Honor. She was taken into custody for 208. She made bond and was released on bond, and then she committed these separate offenses while on felony pretrial release.
I just want to make clear, to save your words, I do intend to impose the enhancement of 2 years for the crimes being committed while on release. So I just wanted to...
All right, thank
So if there was
you.
any confusion about that, I wanted to straighten it out. I apologize for interrupting you, but I thought it was something to clarify up front.
This is illegal.
Calling this illegal is something she probably should have thought about before committing for more offenses while already out on bond. At this point, it's hard to understand this kind of behavior. There's just no way it makes sense.
Not only did she commit these crimes separately from the other crimes, these crimes significantly, especially the burglary, I believe substantially affected the victim. The victim, the owner of the property at Morningstar Ranch. Yes, she was burglarized before. No real property was taken from there. As you heard, you sat through both trials. But in this case, in this burglary here, count...
Let me out of here. I don't have to proceed with this. Move. I don't have to.
Count 4, Your Honor.
Let me out now.
The defendant confronted the victim at her home and has substantially affected the way the victim feels about her safety and security at the home, which I think is very important, Your Honor, to acknowledge
Hold on,
that.
I'm sorry. I'm getting...
Are you going to allow this?
What's that?
Are you going to allow
No, I'm
this?
talking to you. Why are you taking her out? You're not? Okay.
Because I don't want to be in here.
Stay in.
Requested to leave.
Oh, you're bringing the chair in. Okay, that's fine. I apologize, Mr.
No.
That's fine, Your Honor.
I was getting signals from the defense.
That's fine. I also would point out to the court that the unlawful flight from law enforcement...
All right, stand by. Apparently they're going to restrain her and bring her back in. All right.
This is what y'all brought me in here for?
All right. Defendant is back. You may continue, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would also point out to the court that count 1, the unlawful flight from law enforcement,
I didn't run for no police.
and count 5, the resisting arrest counts, are not in any way connected with the prior the 208 case. There's separate victims there. These are definitely separate incidents. The state would argue that as well for count 4, the burglary, Your Honor.
No, I'm not relaxing y'all being illegal. The courts lack jurisdiction over the subject matter. Y'all don't have no right, get this shit off of me.
If I could have just a second, Your Honor.
I ain't never been biting with y'all.
What's the statutory reference to the 2-year enhancement? I can't remember that.
It is, I'm sorry, Your Honor, it is 708D. And I don't know that I made that entirely clear, but it just, whatever the sentence the court prescribes, each sentence gets a 2-year enhancement.
Is that ARS 13-707?
Yes, I'm sorry, ARS 13708.
It's illegal.
But not as to the misdemeanor, obviously.
Not as to the misdemeanor. I concur with the misdemeanor assessment that probation had, that it's just time served in the county jail, that she's already fulfilled more than the requirement for that. I think that these charges probably would be warranted to run concurrent with each other, but I do feel that they should run consecutive to the defendant's prior case. She caused more harm and more emotional stress to the victim, the owner of the property, and then we have separate victims as to the resisting arrest charge and the fleeing from law enforcement charge, Your Honor.
Very well. Thank you very much. All right, the court imposes a sentence as follows. As to count 1, unlawful flight, a Class 5 felony, the court, as I said, finds the offense to be non-repetitive, non-dangerous. The court imposes the presumptive term of 1.5 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections. The court imposes an additional 2 years sentencing enhancement because this offense was committed while the defendant was on pretrial release, and that's pursuant to ARS 13708D. So the total sentence as to count 1, Class 5 felony, is 3.5 years. As to count 2, this is the misdemeanor criminal damage. The court imposes a sentence of time served. As to count 4, again, the court finds this to be non-dangerous and non-repetitive. This is burglary in the 2nd degree, Class 3 felony. The court imposes the presumptive term of 3.5 years. This court also imposes the sentencing enhancement pursuant to 13708D of 2 years. So the total offense level, the total sentence for count 4 is 5.5 years.
She's already been sentenced to 5.5 years on the first charge out of 4. I'll break down the total sentence at the end, because it gets a little confusing. I may skip through some parts to make everything easier to follow. Even so, it seems like the sovereign citizen arguments are finally starting to fall apart. She still has plenty to say before it's over, but it looks like she's beginning to realize that her usual script isn't working and that she's going to have to face the consequences.
As to count 5, resisting arrest, it's a Class 6 felony, non-dangerous, non-repetitive. The court imposes the presumptive sentence of 1 year. The court further imposes the sentencing enhancement as required by law under ARS 13708D for 2 years for a total of 3 years as to count 5. The court further designates that the sentence imposed on counts 1 and 5 are to run concurrent with each other. That is the unlawful flight and the resisting arrest. The sentences in counts 1 and 5 are to run concurrent with each other. The sentence imposed on counts 1 and 5 are to run consecutive to the sentence imposed on count 4, which was 5.5 years as to burglary in the second degree. So the sentence imposed on counts 1 and 5 is to run consecutive to count 4. The sentence imposed on count 4 in this case, which is burglary in the second degree of 5.5 years, is to run consecutive to the sentence that was imposed in case number CR 22208. That's because this defendant was released in the prior case, 22208, when it was a justice court case. She was released when she posted bond on July 7th, 2021. She failed to appear and a warrant was issued for her arrest on October 20th, 2021. The events in this particular case are alleged to have occurred, I believe, on February 5th, 2022. So the events that happened at the Morningstar Ranch that were the subject of 22208 are alleged to have occurred on the dates. Those were alleged to have occurred back on June 12th, 2021. So the prior case, the burglary, alleged to have occurred on June 12, 2021. The fraudulent schemes in 22208 was alleged to have occurred on or about July 6th. She was found guilty of that by the jury. So she was charged with that case, released, went out and committed basically new offenses relating to the same properties. For those reasons, the court runs the sentence on count 4 consecutive to the sentence imposed in case number CR 22208. You're excused. You're remanded to the custody of the sheriff to be delivered to the Arizona Department of Corrections to fulfill a sentence. What? Hold on a second. What?
How much time did you give me? You just said a whole bunch of...
She's trying to figure out how much time she received, and I already worked out the numbers. The judge sentenced her 5.5 years on one charge, then added another 3.5 years on a separate charge, with the sentences running consecutively. That brings the total to 9 years in prison. On top of that, she still has another pending case that hasn't gone to trial yet. So she's definitely looking at 9 years, with the possibility of even more time depending on the outcome of that case. Whether her behavior comes from believing the sovereign citizen claims or something else, the sentence itself seems fully justified. Let me know what you think in the comments.